Good afternoon, Morgan Fairchild. It's such an honor to have you here today, and because you've been such an incredible person, for generations, and we're thrilled to feature you as our cover for the Hollywood Times and Aspiring magazine. And this moment is truly remarkable because it's a new chapter. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
So let's dive into the past a bit. You've been a household name for decades, and your presence has always represented glamour, strength, so many things, and grace. That's you. So looking back at your early days in Hollywood, was there a specific moment that made you feel like you had truly arrived?
When you start off in the theater like I did when I was 10, every step forward always feels like a breakthrough and always thinks, you always think, this is great. So I don't know if there was one moment that made me feel like I arrived, except I remember there was one night I walked into Spago and everybody stopped and stared. I thought, oh, this is odd. So getting used to being scrutinized every moment of your life is a little hard to get used to.
Yeah, because Hollywood can be a tough place to break into, but you've always managed to stay relevant across multiple genres. Was there a particular strategy that you followed to make sure you weren't boxed into one type of role?
I just always try to take parts that are iconoclastic that people don't expect to see me do, and I've always had this approach that every 5 years you have to reintroduce yourself to an audience, a younger audience coming along, which is why I took Friends, which is where I took the part on Friends to play Chandler's mom. And I remember when I was offered the part, Cicely Tyson told me, you shouldn't do that. She said, you're too young to play that guy's mother. And I said, you got to make that transition at some point. I played kids' mothers and teenagers' mothers. Of course, I don't play mothers a lot. I play other things. But yes, I thought, I'd seen the show. I thought it had potential. I was right. And it wasn't a big hit when I took it. And the first day on the set, Matthew Perry comes bounding over to me and says, "Oh, you won't remember me. I used to hang out on the set of Flamingo Road and Falcon Crest with you and my dad." And I said, "Oh, who's your dad?" And he said, "John Bennett Perry." Well, who had a recurring part as a sheriff on Flamingo Road and Falcon Crest. And so I'm like, "You were that kid?" I mean, I guess I am old enough to play this kid's mother, So yeah. But such a sweet guy. But that's always been my approach: is take the thing they don't expect to see you in. Like they called me one day and offered me to play Sandra Bernhard's new girlfriend on Roseanne. And they sent me the script, and it's like she talks about her new girlfriend the whole time. And then I knew the last person anybody was going to expect when she opens the door to show her new girlfriend is Morgan Fairchild. So I thought that was funny. So I went with that, and also just a chance again. It was the first time I think a lipstick lesbian had been on the show, and I thought, anything groundbreaking, anything different than what people expect to see me do, I'm always game for.
Hollywood, it's a golden age. You were right there in the thick of it. How much of your public image was something that you consciously crafted, and how much of it just happened naturally over time?
I always thought that I'd end up playing ingenues, but things happened where I ended up playing the bitch all the time. So it was like, you sort of embrace it because I was up for my first TV movie. I'd only been in LA a few months, and it was with Chuck Fried, who was the king of TV movies in the late 70s. And it was a ripoff of Carrie, the movie with telekinesis and all this. And so Kay Lenz was going to play the Carrie character, and then there were two other good women's parts. And one was the bad guy sorority queen, and the other was Carrie's sister, who's torn between her love for her sister and wanting to be accepted in the sorority. So I go in to read, and Chuck had me read for the sorority queen. And this doesn't happen now, but back then he said, "You got the part." While you're in the room, you got the part. It doesn't have to go through 5 layers of corporate affiliations and stuff now, like it does now. But anyway, so I said, I'd really like to play the sister because she has more gray areas. Actor being torn between her love for her sister and and her desire to be in this damn sorority. And so he said, no, I want a brunette. I said, I'll wear a wig. He said, no. I said, well, can I just read for it? And he said, honey, you haven't been here very long, have you? And I said, no, sir, I haven't. And he said, let me tell you something. I can find a good ingenue anywhere, but a good bitch is hard to find. And if the bad guy doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. Just think of Shane without Jack Palance, and he lists all these movies where the bad guy, is a pivot point. So I thought, well, I'm gonna do this. It's good, but nobody will see it. It's a little horror movie on ABC. Number one TV movie of the year. I still have men come up to me, powerful men, well-known men, come up to me. I loved Initiation of Sarah. They backlit us in lingerie a lot. But I started finding that I could have the gravitas to play the bad guy, because you can get away with no gravitas if you're the ingenue, but you can't if you're the bad guy.
Interesting. So as we reflect on your legacy, it's clear that you've not just survived in Hollywood, you've thrived through its transformations. The industry has gone through, monumental shifts over the years, especially in recent times. So let's talk about that next. You staying in power in a changing industry.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
You staying in power in a changing industry.
I don't know if any of us stay in power during these kinds of shifts, but the main thing, and it's been true, I've been doing this 65 years now. I mean, the main thing is always finding the flow, finding where you fit into the flow, and finding a place for yourself. And so, so I that's one reason I've always tried to take any kind of iconoclastic, crazy part. Doing Pee-wee's Big Adventure. As a favor for Paul Rubens, who called and asked me to do it. So you're always looking for those things. Like right now, I'm starting a podcast with my sister. It's called Two Bitches from Texas. You'll be able to find it anywhere. And basically, we just sit around and talk to friends about, saving the world and, trying to find salvation through it. And so we're doing that, and talking about doing a reality show. We're still in formation on that. Because again, the business has just changed. It changes out from under you. And especially in LA, so much production has moved out of LA. So you sort of figure out, where do I fit in at this stage of my life, at this stage of the business, and what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because some of us just refuse to surrender to old age. Some of us are just going out kicking ass,
Love it. You've had a number of transformative roles throughout your career, but are there any that you feel that you weren't recognized? Your recognition, was it deserved?
Oh, all of them.
Oh, good. I was hoping you'd say that.
People always think, well, because I take bad guys and I make them funny. On a lot of the shows, they let me ad-lib a lot. So on Flamingo Road, for instance, I had like 8 scenes in a 2-hour movie of a Joan Crawford movie, and I was not the Joan Crawford character. But man, do I chew the scenery in those scenes, and and I ad-lib a lot, and I make it funny. So she's a funny bad guy, and it's the same thing Larry Hagman did on Dallas. You wanted to watch him to see what he was going to say next. And Joan Collins, when she came on to Dynasty, it livens it up if you're funny, if you have that funny inflection. And with me, I ad-lib a lot. So I kind of created a niche for myself of the glamour blonde that could also do comedy. And then, doing Mork and Mindy, again, improvising with Robin Williams, even on, like, with Eddie Murphy on a movie called Holy Man, we improvised so much they added scenes to cut back to us to use more. So it's like improvisation. Well, it's like, for instance, with Paul Rubens, I had done Night at the Improv with Paul. I had hosted it, and in the afternoon, I'd never seen him before. In the afternoon, Shecky Green and all the older comics came in, ran through their act, and this young guy shows up, and he just says, I'm not going to run through my act, but I just wanted to come by to tell you, whatever happens, I won't hurt you. And I'm like, what is he going to do? So that night, he comes out as Pee Wee Herman, who I'd never
Love
seen
it.
before. He's jumping around with a paper bag of spiders and snakes and throwing things, and and I'm a theater person, I go with it. So after the show, he comes and says, I love it, you got me, you're the only one who got me, you just went with it. And I said, yeah, what are you going to do? Of course I'll go with it. So, we became great friends. And then, 2, 3 years later, I get a phone call. This is when I still had an answering service. And so, it'd say, we have Pee Wee Herman on the line. So I got on the line. He said, Paul, I know your name. Just say it's Pee Wee Herman. And so he said, well, I've got a big favor to ask. And I said, sure, what? And he said, I'm doing my first movie. I said, great. He said, we have no money. I said, okay. He said, and we need some cameos. We need some celebrity cameos. And everybody's turned us down. And I said, hold on, just wait a minute. First of all, don't tell people that everybody's already turned you down. And we have no money. I said, no, I heard the part about no money. When do you need me? And he said, Thursday. So I said, let me see if I can get off Falcon Crest, So I called them. I only had one scene that day, so they agreed to move it. So I arrive on the back lot at Warner Brothers. They're doing the ninja fight. I don't know what we're doing. I don't have a script. I don't have sides. I have no clue what we're doing. But I arrived and I said, guys, the ninja fight, 4.5 years of Kung Fu in Chinatown, I can do this fight for you. Except falling out of a tree, because Laura will sue me if I break a leg. So we do the ninja fight, and then Jim Brolin shows up, as Pee Wee. Again, we have no script, we have no sides, we have no clue what's going on. And so the guys, and it's Tim Burton's first movie, so Tim and Paul come over and say, just look at each other and say, I know you are, but what am I? And we're saying, what does it mean? Oh, it doesn't matter, it'll be funny in context, and we're like, okay. So we do, I know you are, but what am I? So then I look at Jim and I say, do you have to go back to work today? And he said, no. And we had done the pilot of Hotel together. So I knew Jim from then. And I said, you want to do more? And he said, yeah. So we go over to Paul and Tim and say, hey, you got us for the day. You want to do something else? And they're looking and saying, well, we only have the back lot. They loaned us the back lot. We don't have another set. What could we do? And Jim says, let me make a phone call. So he calls Aaron Spelling. They're not shooting on the Fairmont Hotel set that day, so Aaron loans us the Fairmont Hotel set. So then Jim is a big game hunter. We go over to wardrobe and pull stuff. I'm a spy. Paul is the bellhop. It's a scene where it's like paging Mr. Herman. Yes. And that's all improvised, like Mickey and Judy putting on a show in a barn. It's all improvised, just pulling strings and trying to help out a friend.
Oh, how fun. Great memories. And I know we talked about what's coming up next, and I know that your fans are always excited to hear about what's next. So continue to talk about your current and upcoming projects, and what are you most excited these days for? And talk about when and who is producing, and what are you doing next?
Well, I don't know, the producer wants me to say his name, but anyway,
Okay.
We are talking about a reality show. I can't say anything else about it right now because we're talking about it, and we don't have it set yet. But I'm very excited about it because I've worked with these people before on a different kind of project, and so I'm very excited about that. And the podcast, which my sister and I are very excited about. It seems to be the hot young new thing, and so again, it's just trying to move with the times and stay relevant to people's lives. And God knows there's enough going on in the world right now. There's always something to talk about, and two bitches from Texas, honey, we're going to bitch about it. So, but it's, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've done 2 episodes already. We're doing another one tomorrow. I've got Donna Mills coming tomorrow, my friend Donna. And, we've known each other like 45 years and done Bob Hope specials together and Christmas movies together. And I think it's going to be great fun. So I think it'll be fun for people to hear. It's going to be fun for us to do.
Yeah, it seems like your love for acting hasn't diminished a bit. Are you also exploring creative roles behind the camera, like producing or mentoring young talent?
Well, I'm not producing at the moment, although if we do this reality show, I'm hoping I'll be a producer on it. But young talent, I was always so grateful for the people who mentored me coming up. Mm-hmm. A lot of the young people don't seem like they want mentors these days. They don't talk to you on the set. Oh, one of the great things when I got out here was all of the older stars that I had grown up watching. When you worked with them, you could sit and talk and they would tell you Hollywood stories, and you got to be friends on the set. And now the kids all go to their dressing room and they're on their text and they don't talk to you and they barely say hello in the morning, and so you don't get to know people, much less mentor them or then they don't really ask for advice or help or anything. But I was very grateful for the people that reached out to me when I was coming up.
So even though they don't ask, what can you tell us? What advice would you have for aspiring women in film and television today, mostly women?
The main thing I think is to just get in front of a camera anytime you can. There are so many more avenues now to be seen instead of waiting for getting into a casting room between TikTok and Instagram and all the different things. There's so many. I think it's harder for young people to break in now in a way, but it's also easier in the way that you can do scenes, do creative things on camera, and put them out there for people to see. I know one of my sister teaches acting. She's the one with the Juilliard degree, and she, one of her young people came out here and was putting things out on Instagram, doing scenes, and it was during COVID, and she was putting out also that she was vaccinated. She got like a couple of calls of production saying, "We need somebody who's vaccinated, and can you be there tomorrow? And we like your work on on Instagram." So just putting yourself out there, trying to get seen, getting in front of a camera, trying it anytime you can see it. I grew up in the theater, and I'd done a lot of commercials and some runaway movie productions and stuff in Dallas growing up. But when I got in Search for Tomorrow, I started learning camera technique, and so. I started learning, and I would go in every day on our lunch break. Instead of going to the cafeteria, I would go into the control room and watch our show. And one of the other actors came back, "What are you watching our silly show for?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really get to go to college, and if I'd gone to SMU film school like I was hoping to, they would have had me do scenes, put me on video, and then play it back and show what I did wrong. And these people are paying me to do it." So I take every opportunity as a learning opportunity. Every time you can see what you did wrong, learn. And I'm an old movie buff, so I would go to, when I lived in New York, I would go to all the old movie retrospectives, and I learned to do close-ups from Marlene Dietrich and Carol Lombard and all of the greats, how they did it. And one thing that I see sometimes with young people is they move a lot. And unless that's really a part of the character, stillness is your friend on camera. Stillness is your friend. Pull people into you. Don't jump around, unless it's part of the character that you need. But I see a lot of people, young people, not understanding how camera works.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, this day and time. And speaking of young talent, it's inspiring to see how many generations are discovering your work, because I have done my research.
Oh, have you?
Especially like what you just said, TikTok, Instagram. So let's talk about your legacy and how it's resonating with a whole new generation. Do you find that yourself?
What I find is that my old thing about introduce yourself to a new audience every 5 years has stood in good stead, because when I do autograph shows or things, or go out and do Comic-Cons, you find that one set of audience people want pictures from Flamingo Road, Falcon Crest, Dallas, and then there's a whole other genre that wants pictures of friends. And, they want to see some of the newer stuff, and people love, like the Christmas movie that Donna and Linda Gray and I did, and Lonnie Anderson, bless her heart, did a couple of years ago. And it seems like new audiences discover you. I mean, younger audiences seem to really like the Christmas movie. Who knew?
So. That is interesting. So looking back, what do you think the younger version of Morgan would say if she could see where you are today? Is there something she'd be surprised to learn about your journey?
Just that somebody who was so shy they couldn't make an oral book report in the 5th grade ever ended up on the cover of People magazine with them saying, "Is she too sexy for television?" quite a leap. I don't know if anybody in my high school or grade school would have ever seen that one coming, or my mother at that time.
As you reflect on everything you've accomplished, what do you want your legacy to be? When all is said and done, how do you hope to be remembered in the industry?
To be kind. To be kind. I so have appreciated the people who were kind to me coming up, and it can be a very unkind business. And I think at the end of the day, the kindness and the generosity of spirit is what stays with people. And I remember, you know, anytime anybody comes on one of my sets, I always try to make sure they feel welcome. I always go and introduce myself, tell them we're welcome on the set, tell them where the commissary is, tell them where the ladies' room or men's room is, tell them, you know, here's your trailer over here, you got to go around that to get to it. And to this day, I will have people come up to me in restaurants or, you know, waiting in line at the grocery store. You won't remember me, but I was like on Flamingo Road. I only had one scene, but you were kind to me and you told me where the ladies' room was. You know, and it's like just the little kindnesses in life that make people feel warm and welcome. Growing up as a very shy kid, I knew what it was like to not be the one asked to dance and not be the one chosen for the team and not be the one chosen for anything. And I always make sure that nobody else feels that way if they're around me. That they will always feel warm and welcome around me and part of whatever group I'm in. So I think that's an important part. And also, to be quite frank, I think my biggest legacy probably is not anything in acting, it's all the work I did on AIDS in the 80s. I worked with Dr. Fauci and C. Everett Koop, Dr. C. Everett Koop, who was the Surgeon General at the time, testified before Congress to get AIDS research funding, was there for the unveiling of the first quilt, was there for went to unveil the first AIDS Veterans Wing in New York with Mayor Koch, that's how long ago. And all the work I did on AIDS, I felt like it really helped maybe educate people and possibly help save lives. And that to me is the most important thing I've done.
Thank you so much for that. That's so important that we all step up.
Thank you.
Step up for sure. So you're home, and what do you like to do? Do you watch television? And if so, what's your style?
I watch a lot of news. I'm a news junkie. I'm a history junkie. You know, wanted to be a doctor, a paleontologist when I was a kid. So I read a lot. I read a lot of medical stuff. I read a lot of updates on COVID, on viruses and things like that. And I just watch a lot of news and absorb it and try to help educate people about what's really going on my social media accounts and everything.
Beautiful. Well, I'd love to hear you talk about social media, because I interview so many people that say, "No, I don't want to do that." What do you think about social media?
Well, I think social media can be absolutely horrible. But on the other hand, I have made so many friends that I would not have met without Twitter, and I'm calling it Twitter. You know, if so many people that I know, so many doctors, because I'm a medical jerk, you know, and I talk about COVID all the time, all the doctors, all the research, all the things that I can try to educate the public with, as well as what's going on in the world. I actually have people who follow me on social media who say, I get all my news from you, because you put out good articles, you know, nothing fake, nothing silly, you know, I'm occasionally silly, but you know, but you know it's silly. It's not I'm pretending it's news. So, but it's you know, you try to, and because a lot of local newspapers have folded, and a lot of people don't subscribe to the big newspapers, and because a lot of television in local markets has been taken over, I just get a lot of people who say, I follow you for the news. And so I figure I contribute in some small way to that, to educating people about what's going on in the world for real. For real.
For real. So you talked about watching the news and reporting a little bit on it on your social media. Are there any television shows or any movies that really hit home for you?
You know, I don't know how to work Netflix. I don't know how to, you know, Mark, my fiance who passed away, he was the tech guy, and I don't know how to get them. I need some 15-year-old to come over and show me how to get these things on my, I can watch them on the computer, but it's not the same. You know, but like I love Stranger Things. I have odd things. I watch my news up until 9 o'clock, and then I flip over to Expedition Unknown, Expedition Bigfoot, you know, Ghost Adventures, and those are my relaxing shows that I like. And I've, you know, seen every episode of everything. I'm such a nerd.
So have you been in your life curious to see yourself on camera? Do you watch yourself on camera? Do you see any repeats?
Not if I can help it. Because when you're watching yourself, all you do is think, oh, I could have done that different. Why did I sit there? You know.
We're our own worst critic, right?
Yeah.
So And on your spare time when you're not doing anything, what are your hobbies?
Well, I have 3 cats, so that's kind of a hobby. And I used to do a lot of needlepoint, but really what I do now more is read. There's just always so much to be reading all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that as well.
And I go for long walks. I kind of know on my social media during COVID, when nobody could go to the gym, I started going for long walks in my neighborhood. And I realized from what people were saying, everybody was going stir crazy, cooped up in rooms in cold environments, and I'm here in California. So I started posting pictures of flowers to cheer everybody up. And then fans were saying, well, we want to see pictures of you with the flowers. So I started, and I got into doing my crazy masks and color coordinated masks. And, I walked my neighborhood and I would see, oh, that's going to bloom in a couple of days. I'm going to bring a pink mask tomorrow, and doing all of that. And so I would do that. And then I do my Halloween stuff. As soon as people put up monsters, my neighborhood goes nuts for Halloween. As soon as they put up monsters, I go on and take crazy pictures with the monsters with my mask on, and make up little silly things and add little things to it. And now, about now, people will start saying, where are the Halloween pictures? And guys, nothing's out yet.
Yeah, right.
But
a little early.
I'm a Halloween nut.
Yeah, I love it too. So before we close out, Morgan, what message would you like to share with the readers of the Hollywood Times and Aspiring magazine, and especially those who are looking to you for inspiration?
I think the main thing, especially as you get older, is to value the relationships you have, to value, I've lost several friends this year, Loretta Swit and Lonnie Anderson and a couple of others that aren't known. You value those relationships. And again, to be kind. I see so much, especially on social media now, where people just feel the need to say all kinds of horrific things to people they don't know anything about. And there's no need for that. To be kind to each other, because to me, our main purpose in life is to help each other get through it. And I'm not seeing a lot of that these days. So I would encourage that. If that's my legacy, if that's what people could take, it makes you much happier. And learning to let go of things, learning to not hold on to old whatever, and to move into the light, keep moving forward. Everything has to keep moving forward. If you dwell on the past and you dwell on the negative, it'll just drag you down. You just have to keep moving forward.
I love that, Morgan. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Your journey, wisdom, and perspective continue to inspire so many of us. Thank you again for taking the time to chat with us, and we can't wait to see where this next chapter takes you.
Thank you, Valerie.
All right.